Claude Opus 4.8 just hit 88.6% on SWE Bench Verified, the highest published score in class, and Cursor is answering your keystrokes in 150 milliseconds. Two completely different games, and which one you pick could cost you hours of friction every single week. Anthropic just dropped Claude Opus 4.8 with a 1 million token context window, and Cursor keeps pulling developers away from every other tool. So I went through official pricing pages, published benchmarks, and community reports comparing both across 5 head-to-head tests. The final verdict has nothing to do with which one scores higher on a benchmark. It comes down to where you actually do your work. And that answer might flip everything you thought you knew about which tool to pay for. My name is Brian, and I'm in these tools 12 hours a day, so you don't have to be. And before we get into the numbers, let me tell you exactly who this comparison is built for. Because picking the wrong one is a workflow tax you pay every single day. Both tools are genuinely great at coding, just in totally different ways. And if you're shipping code every day, the gap between 150 days tab completions and a full codebase refactor agent is not a small thing. That gap is the difference between a tool that lives inside your editor and one that rewrites your whole project. Test 1 is code completion accuracy and context awareness, and 88.6% is the number that started this whole conversation. That's Claude Opus 4.8's SWE Bench verified score, the highest published figure in class right now. But Cursor doesn't even play on that field, so I had to figure out what a fair comparison actually looks like here. These two products are literally measured on different things. Claude Opus 4.8 hits 88.6% SWE Bench verified and 69.2% SWE Bench Pro, both vendor claimed. So take that with a grain of salt. While Cursor's tab completions clock in at a 150 to 250 meters with 5 to 15 lines predicted correctly, which is a community-reported latency test, not a pass-fail benchmark. This one's a tie, and not a lazy tie either. I thought I'd hand this to Claude Opus 4.8 on benchmark scores alone. But Cursor's real-time completions are measuring something completely different, and you can't call a winner when the two sides aren't running the same race. So score stays even, one test tied. Test 2 is pricing and cost transparency, and the number that matters here is 15 to 30%. That's the overage some Cursor Power users are reporting when credits run out mid-month, and if you're hammering the tool every day and suddenly your bill jumps by 30%, that's a real budget problem, not a rounding error. I looked at both pricing pages side by side. Claude Opus 4.8 API runs $5 per $1 million input tokens and $25 per $1 million output tokens at standard speed, while Cursor's Pro plan is $20 a month flat, which sounds simpler, but community reports flag 15 to 30% overages when credits deplete, so Claude's subscription plans carry no overage risk and the entry cost favors Cursor, but predictability favors Claude. Pricing is a tie, and that surprised me a little because I thought Cursor's flat subscription would just win on simplicity. But when you factor in the overage risk, Claude Opus 4.8's per token pricing is actually more predictable for heavy users. It depends on your usage pattern. And 2 tests in, still tied across the board. Test 3 is a multi-file editing and refactoring, and this is where one of these tools has a real edge. Cursor's Composer does handle multi-file edits, but community reports say it starts falling apart on large code bases. And if you're doing a serious migration across dozens of files and your tool drops context, halfway through, you're not saving time, you're creating cleanup work. The scale gap here genuinely surprised me. Claude Opus 4.8's dynamic workflows in Claude Code can spin up hundreds of parallel subagents to work across a codebase simultaneously. Cursor's Composer is single-threaded, and the community has been asking for better multi-file support for a while, and Claude also brings a 1 million token context window, so it holds the full project in memory across long sessions. Claude Opus 4.8 takes this one, and it's not close. The gap in parallel execution and context size is too big to ignore, and when you need to refactor across a whole codebase, Claude Opus 4.8 is just in a different league, which puts it on the board at 1 to 0, 2 tied. 2 tests left, and this is where your money actually gets decided. IDE integration and raw speed are up next. Cursor has been building for exactly these 2 dimensions since day 1, and the score could flip fast. Test 4 is integration depth with development workflows, and the number that frames this is 0, as in zero migration friction, because Cursor is a full VS Code fork, which means every extension, every theme, every keyboard shortcut you already know just works. while Claude Opus 4.8 operates through a terminal-based agent, which is powerful but is a completely different experience from AI living inside your editor. Cursor gives you tab autocomplete, composer, inline editing, and chat all running inside a VS Code fork with the full extension ecosystem, while Claude Opus 4.8 is available on API, AWS Bedrock, Google Cloud Vertex, and Azure Foundry. Way more deployment options. But it doesn't live in your editor the same way, and Claude Code is terminal-based with no native tab completion at all. Cursor wins IDE integration, and this one was pretty clear once I laid it out. I thought Claude Opus 4.8's multi-platform reach might balance things out, but if you're a VS Code developer, Cursor is just built for you in a way that Claude Code isn't, and that ties the score up at Claude Opus 4.81, Cursor 1, 2 tied. Test 5 is response latency and real-time speed, and 150 milliseconds is the number. That's Cursor's tab completion latency on an M2 MacBook Pro. Community reported, because if your autocomplete is slow enough that you notice the pause, you stop trusting it and you stop using it, and speed in the editor is the whole point. Cursor's tab completions come in at 150 to 250 seconds, which community reports put at 3 to 5 times faster than GitHub Copilot, predicting 5 to 15 lines correctly in near real time, while Claude Opus 4.8 has a fast mode at 2.5 times standard speed, costing $10 per $1 million input tokens, but that's an API response speed, not inline completion. And these are different workflows. Cursor just wins the in-editor speed game. Cursor takes real-time speed, no question. Claude Opus 4.8's fast mode is genuinely fast for API work, but it can't touch sub-240 ESE's inline completions, and that puts the final score at Claude Opus 4.81, Cursor 2 tied, with Cursor pulling ahead on the tests that matter most to someone coding inside an editor all day. Alright, so here's where Claude Opus 4.8 clearly beats Cursor. You want code-based scale refactoring. Claude's dynamic workflows spawn hundreds of parallel subagents. You need to hold a full project in memory. It's got 1 million tokens of context. You need deployment on AWS, GCP, or Azure. Claude runs on all three, and that 88.6% SWE bench verified score is still the best published number in class. And here's where Cursor clearly beats Claude Opus 4.8, tab completions at 150 to 200 FPS, which is 3 to 5 times faster than GitHub Copilot, a full VS Code fork with zero migration friction, multi-line predictions of 5 to 15 lines in real time, and a $20 a month Pro plan that's cheaper than Claude Pro for someone who just wants daily IDE help. Okay, so here's the rule. If you live in VS Code and want AI that feels like part of the editor, go Cursor. If you're doing heavy refactoring, migrations, or need that 88.6% benchmark accuracy on hard engineering problems, go Claude Opus 4.8. And the safer pick for most daily coders is Cursor, because the downside of a slow or clunky editor is something you feel every single hour, and 150 milliseconds matters. I ran Claude Opus 4.8 against GitHub Copilot next, and the pricing gap flips in a way that actually changes the decision for solo developers. That comparison is already on the channel, and the result genuinely caught me off guard.